Hello. Hello everyone. My name is Zil, and I'm a digital fashion designer. And I'm super proud to be on board of Helsinki Fashion Week. That is the first ever fully digital fashion week in the history. Thanks to Evelyn Mora, that she's such a visionary and pushed things really forward together with the team. They're doing excellent work, in my opinion, and it's kind of like pushing the boundaries further and revealing the new possibilities of how we can work in fashion. And they're even making a report on how we, how much digital footprint are we making if this way of working digitally is really sustainable. That I'm excited about, and that's why it's also unveiling the problems working this way. I'm based in Prague, Czech Republic, and where I live and work. And I actually like to connect with a lot of creators across the world because I spent 5 years in Amsterdam, so I have a lot of friends and connections there. I started with digital prototyping over there. And yes, so the topic of today's stream was actually being a 3D fashion designer in Czech Republic. And since fashion of today is about unity and getting together, I decided to make small mini interviews with people that I admire and that I look up to, and some of them I work with. And yes, so I will start with a friend of mine, my colleague Helena Todd, who we met some time ago and start working together. And she left a little message, and she's gonna introduce our collaborative project, Transform a Jacket. So here we go. Yes. Okay. Yes. Do I share the screen now? Yes.
I met Zil Vostalova at the Design Week in Prague 2016. She introduced me to 3D modeling in the fashion industry, which she was already using herself at the time to create her great garments, while explaining to me how this approach could refresh a world beating fashion industry that produces tons of waste a year. She introduced me to studios that are already using this approach in their creation as well. I studied textiles and glass design at the Academy of Arts, Architecture and Design in Prague. I use different approaches and methods in my creation in a combination of materials such as soft with solids. Zil's approach in fashion creation astounded and fascinated me, which is why we co-created the Transform a Jacket project, a concept that contemplates the cycle and afterlife of clothing. We are looking for new aesthetic forms and features of the suit, a well-known office uniform that translates into new forms to make new quality accessible to them and to prolong their existence. Transform a Jacket dresses virtual models in digital clothing to push the limits of possibilities within the presentation and construction of the garment. Assemble, disassemble, reassemble aligned the project, which was presented with a 3D hologram mirror. I was absolutely consumed by the joint project. I don't create overproduction myself in my production, and the experience of other 3D programs has been to my advantage. I see objects like jewelry. An example from my creation is Master Project Chandelier Zero, which was also first originated in a 3D platform, and then one piece was realized. It is currently on physical display at the Porthamka Glass Museum in Prague. So after all, I jumped headfirst into creating 3D fashion, which I adore and have a close relationship with. This space allowed me to connect soft and solid material absolutely. They act like they are in a real environment. I mean, this could be a tool for the recovery of the fashion industry, which is highly important and is sustainable, which is the future. Trying it out is worth it.
So that was my colleague. Then today I'm gonna present micro interviews. First one will be with Holly McQuillan, who's a guru of no-waste fashion patterning, and she is using digital prototyping for weaving her garments. And here is Holly talking about her PhD in Borås University in Sweden, and her research and current work.
My PhD as a whole is called Zero Waste Systems Thinking.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that I look at the entire system of textile and form production and in a context. So the context is an environmental crisis and now a coronavirus crisis. And what that means is that we need to change how we work. So the idea is that if we view the redevelopment of the fashion system through a lens of zero waste, what would that mean? What would that look like? If we have this assumption in the industry that waste is inevitable, but what if we went sort of radical and said, maybe it's not inevitable. Why don't we think about designing the system so that it's not? And what could that look like? What new models of design and manufacture would kind of come to the surface? And then associated with that is this idea of transition design. So it's this kind of theoretical framework, which is this kind of notion that it's all very well and good to say, here's this utopian future that we need. You need to be able to kind of outline how we get there. Like, how do we transition from what we have now? And what are these kind of ingrained things and these assumptions that we have? And then how do we get to this other place? And so I'm trying to kind of lay out a bit of a, I don't know, steps or ways of working or how we can get there. And so the first part of my PhD, I was looking at the current industry and trying to work with them, like what would be the next little step for them to take, you know, in terms of waste reduction and that kind of thing. And then reflected on that and then tried to think about it from a systems perspective. So rather than like a little band-aid fix or one little thing that we could do, this kind of whole system approach. And so then I started thinking about the entire supply chain. So not just cutting fabric out on the production room floor and having waste there, or and trying to reduce that or eliminate that, but what about the yarn? What about the fiber production? Where are these factories located? But with weaving, it doesn't really exist. We don't really have the design tools or the methods to make, you know, complex 3D woven garments.
When did you start thinking about applying no waste principle in your work?
Well, no waste started when I was doing my master's back in 2004, so a long time. And when I started, it wasn't intentionally that way. Like I ended up developing like a draping method for my master's, which happened to be zero waste, although that term didn't exist when I was starting. It was like you couldn't Google it. There was no information out there. The only thing that I could find was like historical references.
Yeah.
And but I really liked the challenge of working within these constraints and trying to kind of pull out as much of the creative potential within those constraints as I could. And I also have a thing called aphantasia, which is I can't visualize things. So most designers are really good at visualizing in their head what they want, but I can't do it at all. And so the constraint of the fabric width was like and having to work physically or with paper was really, really helpful as a practice for me, because I'm, you know, I really love form and I love fashion and I love garment construction, you know, like all the whole thing. But I always found it really hard because I was taught that sketching, you know, with pen and paper, that's how you design if you're a fashion designer. And I never really got it. And so yeah, back in 2004, and then I spent a lot of years trying to work out methods that I felt were contemporary rather than just drawn from historical references. And doing that purely by practice, by experimentation. And then I met Timo Rissanen, who I co-authored a book with, and we're currently doing the second edition. And finding someone else that was doing what I was doing was really amazing, and I was very excited. And yeah, so that was kind of how I started. And then I think in terms of like digital stuff, I was always really into technology. I was always very, you know, I used Illustrator and Photoshop before anybody ever taught me. I just really liked manipulating digital information. And then I used to pattern make my zero waste patterns in Illustrator. And then I'd print them out in paper and I'd stick them together to try and work out is my pattern working. And then I'd make a full scale version of it in cloth. And then I found out about Clo 3D from Rickard Lindqvist, who's a Swedish designer. He's amazing. And I immediately saw the advantages for what I do, because then all of a sudden I wouldn't have to do it in Illustrator, make a paper one, you know, print it out, make it out of paper, and then do it in fabric.
When you're using this 3D tool, let's say, are you actually really using less fabric for toiles?
Oh, yeah.
Are you really saving time? Because it kind of advocates it, but is it really true from the practice?
Yeah, well, I mean, for my own research, absolutely. I mean, I very rarely make toiles at all anymore. With like the whole garment weaving stuff that I do, I go straight from making the form that's, you know, all the layers and working all that out into it being woven as the garment. I think the ideal kind of process would maybe to be able to at least like sort of weave a toile, but often, you know, given at the moment anyway, given the restrictions on access to labs and things, it's just not really doable. But what the software enables me to do is to have a reasonably high degree of certainty before I weave it, what it's going to do and behave and that kind of thing. When it comes to like with industry, because I not so much lately, but at the start of my PhD, I was working with industry using Clo 3D to develop conventional zero waste garments in the context of their business, or low waste garments. And the software was just so useful, because it meant that I could be in Sweden developing, you know, designs and collaborate with them in the US, and they could then send that information to their factory in Colombia. And there was no need, there was less of a need to make toiles. The interesting thing was though that they didn't really trust it to start with. And so at the beginning, I would send them, you know, a pattern with a digital toile, and then they would make it in real life just to check, to compare. And they were always like, yeah, it's the same. You know, there's no real difference. And so then they eliminated a whole stage of the sampling process, because it means that they don't need to waste all that time anymore. Like it was a very interesting experience, definitely, to kind of to just see how much time it could save. which isn't necessarily a good thing always. You know, like with industry, the faster you get with things, generally you start to produce more. There's like this kind of relationship between digital is less wasteful, yes, but it needs to be seen in context for sure. I think prototyping garments and clothes, whether they're zero waste or not, is super useful. Absolutely, without a doubt, you are going to reduce the amount of material waste that you make in the process, but it's not a complete solution. So it's just, you know, a matter of working out. I remember the first time I wove something that I designed in that way, and I looked at the loom, and it was like watching yarn being 3D printed. So it was because I knew, you know, it looked like flat fabric to anybody who didn't know what they were looking at, but because I knew what was happening in all of these layers, I knew I was weaving a 3D thing. And it was, yeah, it was super cool. Being able to use Clo 3D meant that I could do that. And I never feel like when I'm designing in Clo that it's necessarily digital. Like, it's not unreal to me. It's always real. And I know a lot of people, I have like colleagues and things who say things like, yeah, but the digital is just so fake. It's not a real part of like an actual crafts person's practice or something, you know. And I'm like, but it's just an extension of me, and it's enabling me to do things that would either take far too much time in real life, or that are sometimes physically impossible. And there's a craft in manipulating that and being able to control what's happening. And, you know, that is no different to, I don't know, molding with and blowing glass, or, you know, weaving by hand or anything like that. The crafting is just in a different place. I describe it as a figure of thought. So sometimes it's an experiment in an idea, and I just go straight into Clo 3D and try and work out, well, how can I, you know, fold or flatten this 3D form into something two-dimensional, and so that I can then weave it, and then it becomes 3D form. And I use Clo in order to visualize what those two stages are like, so I can see the flat two-dimensional woven form, and then I can see the 3D completed form next to it.
So that was interview with Holly, and now I would like to share a little interview with Jakubra, who is an artist, and he's the head of New Aliens Agency, a modeling agency.
Hi, my name is Jakubra. I'm a visual artist, performer, and head of New Aliens Agency. I'm currently based in Prague, Czech Republic. About the agency, it's basically modeling agency, and we stand for positive message about diversity and inclusivity in fashion industry. And the agency is so dedicated mostly for humanity and diversity. And we have also the second part, which is trendsetting agency. So it works together really well for client and for fashion model. Our biggest goal or aim is to really change the standard for modeling industry with new beauty.
Why have you decided to digitalize bodies? The New Aliens Agency doing the body scans. Isn't it killing the real models' work? Or you can.
No, I don't think so. It kills the normal model's role or the industry itself. I mean, it's kind of extension to our work, and like really super possibilities, new possibilities for our models. You know, they can be on different places at the same time around the world, doing some cool stuffs. And so yeah, I'm really welcoming it. So we basically know each other with Jill for a long time, so we just started collaborating on my artistic personal projects, and then it totally naturally developed into scanning our models in New Aliens Agency, and we decided to create digital models for ready for industry. With the digital models, these kind of stuffs are, blown away, because you just program the digital model to work like that or to behave like that, and so they can just chill at their home, and their digital selves are doing some jobs or catwalks.
Can you imagine having digital identity or digital body, perhaps?
Definitely, and I would love to. I had thought about my personal experience when I was young as a LGBTQ person. So for me, it was really important to have some kind of parallel digital me on the internet, trying to develop my identity, develop my personality, and connect with people in the Czech Republic or around the world. So definitely, I can imagine I'm having now digital body with different identity that is not possible to have in real life, and connecting with people would be very nice.
If you think about your digital identity or the body, perhaps, who or what would you be?
If there are no limits, I imagine my digital body like a liquid fluids in the space, black and shiny, and pulsing like some techno sound, something like this instead of heartbeat. And if I must go ground to the earth a little bit, uh, I would definitely change my body to be more feminine, and like really really crazy tattoos, like moving tattoos, like pictures in Harry Potter, moving pictures. So yeah, I would imagine moving tattoos on my body, constantly moving. That would be nice.
Can you imagine wearing a digital garment?
Yeah, definitely.
Would you be interested in buying digital clothing if there would be market space for it?
I would love to buy digital clothes more, and I can imagine that on my Instagram, for example. And the biggest question for me is the purpose of these things for social media, for example.
Is there something that you would like to say to digital designers, digital fashion designers of today across the world?
Yeah, firstly, I would like to say normal physical designers, fashion designers, to create clothes for all people, all sizes, all genders, first of all. And then we can talk about digital clothing, where you can let it all out, like be creative, whatever, like literally all shapes, I would like to say big thank you to Evelyn Mora and all Helsinki Fashion Week team, and also the other partners. They're all like visionaries and really professionals and really really great people and creative minds. So it's really really great to collaborate together on these projects and to push the boundaries.
It was Yakubra, and now we'll share a small interview with singer Niva, who is based in Prague as well.
Hey, my name is Niva. I'm a musician from Prague. What sets us apart from the other music bands is that the main face of this project is a digital avatar. Our debut EP, Easy, was released by Czech Bad Names label in February 2020. In autumn 2020, you might see our first audiovisual show.
Hi Niva, how are you doing these days? What are you up to, and has COVID-19 lockdown somehow affected your way of working or a daily routine in any form or shape?
I'm doing fine, actually, thank you. COVID didn't affect me as much. It has been the same. I just wasn't really productive, to be honest, when it comes to music. But now we work on our debut album, which we are about to release next year, so we are excited to make new stuff.
Grimes recently announced she'd rather not perform live, but rather exist as a digital entity. Does this inspire you in any way?
Grimes is definitely my inspiration in many ways. I really like her music, and I think as a person she's really talented and smart. And what I appreciate about her the most, that she makes her music just by herself, and it's really motivating. I didn't know she announced such a thing, but I agree.
You collaborated with few digital fashion designers. Could you show us some pieces from your wardrobe?
Yes, of course. I collaborated with Ofram 3D, the Fabricant, Transformer Jacket, 3D Dressmaker, and it has been a pleasure. Honestly, I really enjoyed the variety of shapes and materials. When I started, I wasn't really into fashion, but this has just brought me another perspective for sustainability, and I'm so hyped about it.
What would be your message to digital fashion designers?
I would just say keep working on new great stuff. People will eventually understand the meaning of the beauty and the never ending options.
Thank you for the interview and wish you success with your upcoming project.
Thank you so much, it was a pleasure.
I would love to thank you to all the interviewers, to all people I could interview, and that they could share their visions, dreams, and way of working, and get us a little insight. And are there any questions? Look. There's a question if there are any downsides of digital fashion. The downsides would be maybe since it is pretty upcoming field. There is nobody that can tell you what is right or wrong in terms of looking for work. You have to be very active, and you have to be communicating with different with your peers basically, and be very active, presenting, teaching people, you know, because more and more people wants to know about how this works. And so the downsides would be maybe as well that you need a big gaming computer to be able to render big scenes, but that's something that could be easily overcome. And yes, there's lots going on, and I believe that this has a future for the fashion designers, but also for pushing this sustainable way of working forward in the fashion industry and really make a change and impact. Thank you for listening and watching, and thank you for everybody who was involved. And yes, please watch a show on the 2nd of August. Thank you, bye-bye.